seats quickly. Well, hey guys, thanks for coming in. I'm looking at this camera and this audience, so bear with me because there's a lot going on. But I really want to say thank you for coming. I am photographer Chenoa Maxwell, and this is my art.
Introspection India.
Introspection India, yes.
Okay, let's start there. I know why we chose the title and why you came up with the title Introspection India, but can you just give us a backstory about this trip in India and what it meant to you on a personal level and as well as like your professional photography career?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief because it's a really life-changing moment. This trip was for me. I was just reaching a place in my life where I decided I really wanted to get to the next layer of my skills as a photographer. I had just really basically become a photographer or considered myself a professional. And I heard about this amazing program that was offered by a Magnum photographer called David Allen Harvey. He's amazing. And it was done by the Tuscany Photographic Workshop. And they teach these international workshops with people who are just extremely professional, gifted, and experienced. So I was one of 15 students that went to India to do a one-week workshop with this master photographer. I was the only American, I was the only woman of color, and I say that as a kind of a badge of honor because it really opens you up to the world when you go and you experience culture at that level, and then you go amongst all of these people who are full of passion from around the world. They bring together a certain set of experience and technical knowledge, and then a worldview that you don't get to have with your other peers. So it was a really phenomenal experience. And basically we went to this workshop to open up our eyes and our vision to see wider and bigger and to stop any kind of barriers that were holding us back or anything that we were doing in our photography or in our work that was starting to create conformed ideals. So
tell us about what your teacher specifically was saying to you when you were in India and how we got to the introspective part.
He basically said I was crazy. He called me crazy, and he just went off on me. I mean, like, I remember in acting, my acting teacher, Susan Batson, she used to pretty much say the same thing, so it was a really emotional moment for me because basically she would say, I don't give a flying F if you're talented or pretty, you gotta make people remember you. And he was basically saying the same thing. I don't care if your technique is off. I don't care if your photos look digitalized. I don't care about anything. What I care about is the truth of you coming out. Let the world see your truth. And your truth is crazy. It's different. It's abstract. And it may take you a little longer to get to what you think success is. But if you keep knocking it out the box and being honest with your work, that's all that matters. And so that was really hard because, you know, when someone's telling you, you're crazy, you're like, what the fuck does that mean? I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm cool. Shoot. You know, I really did. I thought I really believe I'm very normal. So I didn't really understand what that meant.
And you found it in India. What was the process of you going through that, having this teacher telling you what you're doing is not working, it's not you, the essence of you is not in your photography? What did you have to do in order to capture these images that are very introspective?
I can feel myself getting emotional. I remember the next morning when I got up, I woke up so that I could photograph the first light. That was very different for me. You know, as a photographer, I've never woken up to photograph the very first light of day. And I started approaching my work just like that simply, trying to figure out, okay, well, what is my essence? What when they say I'm crazy, I don't think at first I took it negative, but now I started to turn my head and do a lot of prayer and a lot of introspection and try to figure out, well, who am I that these people see? What is this part of crazy that they want to see? And what does that mean? And so I did start approaching things very differently. I woke up and I shot the first daylight. I had no agenda. I started to look for things. Every day I made a decision on what I was going to photograph. So I said, okay, today I'm going to go out and I'm going to look for hands. And hands can be a shape in the sky. It doesn't have to be a physical object. I started, like pretending I was an animal and shooting from different levels, and I just started to sit there like a beggar for hours in the street and just watch the world go by and understand my point of view of what I was seeing before I took a single shot. And I cried a lot.
Why were you crying a lot? What were the tears for? Were they of joy, of sadness, of...
It was a lot of things. I think at first it was because I was just plumb lost. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like I was a child just, like not getting it. Like, what does he mean by this? I just couldn't get it. And the more I got frustrated, the more I had to remember to just break away from it. And then I would go and shoot, and then I'd capture something really beautiful, and then I got so emotional because I started to get it. I started to go, oh my God, okay, I got it. I think I got it. And then I'd come back, and he'd be like, that's good, that's better. Keep trying. Yes.
Do you remember the first picture you took after that moment?
I do. I have, there was a group of gypsies, and it was in a town, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, so don't hold me to it, but it's pronounced Navalgarh, and it's in Rajasthan, and it was a pack of gypsies. They were the only family in this big desert space. And I photographed this man playing like an alarm clock in the morning. And I just followed him into town. That was the first.
Playing an alarm clock?
It was like an alarm clock. Everyone was sleeping. It was the first light of day.
So
and he was
like
just up playing. And I was like, who is he playing to? What is he playing? So it was like an alarm clock, like everybody wake up. That was the first image that I took.
I'm going to grab a lamp because
Sure.
I'm like doing the messages on my phone and they want to, it's a little dark.
Do you want to switch? Because when I'm closer, I think, no.
Okay, that might work. How long were you in India exactly?
Oh, I was in India for a brief moment. I would have loved to have been there longer. I was there for almost a month. I went to the workshop for 7 days, and then I traveled by myself for the rest of the week. That was also something that I had never really done before. I travel solo, but this was a really interesting time to do that type of traveling because India, it's a very different country. It has a very different culture, and traveling alone is a little bit overwhelming. So I had to kind of get used to the idea that, okay, here I am in this massive space of so much going on, and just forget about it and just focus on my work.
And let's talk about your work. When did you become a photographer? When did you first start photographing?
When did I first become a photographer? Oh man, I don't even know if I can pinpoint that really, because I've always really had this deep interest in photography, I think that when I could say that I was like, and this is what they're talking about in the class. I think I could proudly say, hey, I'm a photographer when I got my first cover. But that's really dumb because that's not when I became a photographer. You know what I mean? But in your mind, you think it's the first big paycheck or the first big gig that you can say, hey, yay, I'm that photographer. But, you know, I can't really pinpoint the day that I became one. I just knew that this was the thing that I knew I was meant to do, and it actually was saving my life, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. We have so many questions on Twitter, my goodness. I'm going to ask these because I know I'll forget to come back to it. Tay Hansberry, who's also a photographer and an actress, and we never said that for people who aren't aware of Chenoa. She's this amazing, talented actress, if you're just like viewing it, because I see we got some viewers. And she's this amazing photographer. She's just really an artist at heart. And I know Tay, she's a good friend of mine, and she's the same way, this amazing actress and amazing photographer. She's asking, how has being a woman, particularly an attractive woman, affected you positively or negatively in the photography world?
Well, thank you for the compliment, Tay. I haven't gotten caught up in that yet. I think the wonderful thing about being new to something is that you get to, I don't have any negative, there's nothing negative about this yet. I am still playing and learning and growing, and every day it's like a discovery for me, which is why I love it so much. So I don't know. My sex and my, what you say is attractiveness, which I appreciate, it just doesn't have anything. I love being a photographer. Let me just say this, because I don't feel attractive. I don't have to feel a certain way, a certain physicality. I just put on my jeans, pull my hair back, and hit the streets. And I'm kind of, you know, I kind of disappear. I think I like that I disappear. I don't know if that answers it, but that's...
And then we have another question. Just being Doreen, who we love, because she tweets us all the time. She says, what is the inspiration for your artwork?
Oh, the inspiration for my artwork, that's easy. It's just light. I love light. Light is everything to me. That is the essence of everything I do, everything I say. I have this seminar that I teach, Living Limitlessly, and I always, light, photography is writing with light. And anytime you see a gleam of light, anytime you feel a bit of warmth on your body, it all comes from light. So the sun is something that makes me feel excited. A dim light, a certain ambiance, and then the people behind it. So it's people and light. That's my inspiration, all the time, no matter what.
That's great. Talk to us about what was like the final, you had this amazing career as an actress, and you kind of just, I won't say walked away, but you stopped in the middle of what a lot of people would say is like, you have a great career, you should keep building on that, keep going. Yeah. But you decided to just stop and start from scratch in something else that no one knew you in. Mm-hmm. No one knew that you were interested in.
Right.
What was the shift in your life that you were like, no, I'm doing photography now?
Well, if I may, I'd like to just back up a little bit, because what amazing, you said I had an amazing career in acting, and I don't know if anything is amazing if you're not, in acting I never felt like I had 2 feet on the ground. I don't know if that makes sense. But my spirit never got anchored in it. So I don't know how amazing that made my career. But I was very blessed to have experienced something that I was so passionate about at so many different levels. But the shift came because I really felt like at some point I needed to ground my spirit. So I moved to London and I fell in love, and I got an opportunity to ask myself the questions that are necessary for growth, light, and development, which is what I teach in Finding Your Angle. Plug.
Is what you teach?
I have a seminar called Finding Your Angle.
Okay.
and the angle is answers necessary for growth, light, and empowerment. And it and so basically I asked myself the right questions because I had a moment to. And sometimes you go through life and you don't sit down and you don't get quiet and you don't ask yourself because you're too afraid, because you know that if you say one thing you might have to make a choice, or you might have to cut, or you might have to make a decision and you don't feel like it, so you don't, so you keep going. Mm-hmm. I got to a place in my life where I couldn't do that anymore. And when I made that choice to move to London, I hated it. So I was really lonely and alone, and I felt like I had left everything that I had worked so hard for, and I felt, oh my God, did I just mess up my whole life, making this choice? But I had my camera. And so I would take my camera out because I'm a firm believer in if you're going through something bad, that's because you're one step away from doing something that you need to do. So fill the space. Not with anger or fear, fill it with something positive that moves you into what you need to be doing. So my photography started to become that. So I would just pick up my camera and travel and take pictures. And through that and through some works of service, it kind of established what I'm doing today.
And we have like tons of people are just tweeting you questions. Bundle House on Twitter, who has a painting as their avatar, so I'm assuming you're an artist, says, how was the experience of shooting in India different from shooting in Uganda artistically?
It was a very different experience. 2 different trips, 2 different cameras. Uganda artistically, well, first of all, Uganda was in war when I went. So I went and it was really scary. It was in the middle of war and there was a lot of conflict. It was also my very first trip as a photographer internationally, as a person who had decided to become a photographer. So that was really quite different. But I think the landscape is so different. The culture is so different. That it provided... It was just a completely different experience. I couldn't even compare the two, to be quite honest. So as an artist, even though it would seem like it would, it was just so different. I can't even begin to answer that question. It was just two different experiences, 2 different cameras, 2 different lights, war, not war, the start of something, the beginning of a search for myself.
Mr. Courtney K says, where do you see yourself as a photographer 5 years from now, and what do you hope to accomplish during this time frame?
That's a really good question. As a photographer, I see myself with my images being part of a museum collection. I see myself as a teacher, teaching other artists as a source of inspiration. I see myself as a photographer with a lot of published works, a book, and a journal that helps you to develop your artistic eye and your artistic voice. And a photographer that actually profits, turns her art into commerce.
I wanted to ask...
Any questions, you guys? Come in. Hi. Hi.
You mentioned earlier that photography saved your life, which is kind of deep. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Photography saved my life. That is deep. I don't even know that I mentioned that. Yeah. I think that I was dying. I was dying internally. My spirit was dying. I felt really dark. At a point in my life. What a lot of people don't know about me, and there would be no reason to know, is that I had a really challenging first beginning of my life. So when you have real struggle and real challenge in your life, you either continue to have it because you don't build the tools necessary to get out of it. But if you're lucky enough or blessed enough to develop those tools, finding that darkness again is something you cannot ever do or go back to. I know I couldn't. So when I started to find myself back in that darkness, I felt like I was dying again. I felt like here I am again. I'm returning to this place that I've worked so hard to get out of. How did I get here? And a lot of it was a lot of the things I asked for, worked hard for, prayed for, but I was still right here in this mess where I was really, really dark. So photography helped me find my light again, find my life again, because it gave me a different purpose. It helped me get myself off of me and get myself onto others. And it was just so rewarding and so enriching that I started to get fed again. And then I started to realize who I was and redevelop who I am and throw away the junk that wasn't me. So that's kind of how it saved my life.
We have another question online. Art by J. Taylor asked, how did the people of India respond to you and how receptive were they to your style of photography?
That's a great question. They were really receptive. I found that a lot of people thought I was Indian, so they would bring me into their homes, and they were it's a very warm culture, India. It's steeped in all of these incredible saturations of joy, smells, colors, traditions, culture, love. And I got to experience all of that at every level. They were really, 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 open to me. And I think it's because I also was so humbled. I was overwhelmed by the beauty of that country. And I think when they see that, people who are so in tune of watching spirits, they can tune into your spirit and they can feel that they do embrace you. So I was really fortunate.
I agree with that. Someone else asked, where can your artwork be purchased outside of your exhibits? Do you have a website? All of the artwork that you see behind us can be purchased via our website. You can contact us. We have Twitter, Facebook, email at papillionart.org. And Chenoa has amazing artwork, other bodies of work outside of the India experience. So
yes. You can always tweet me. Tweet me at Chenoa Maxwell, Chenoa Maxwell, like the coffee. But I do have a website. It's also my name, Chenoa Maxwell. Everything is my name. Tumblr, Chenoa Maxwell, just Chenoa Maxwell. I am so easily found, and I am a very responsive person. So if you want something, I would be more than happy to accommodate your wishes, and I'm building an e-commerce site now, so eventually, hopefully within 2 months' time, I will launch the site, and there will be some really great artwork for sale there as well.
And when she launches it, we'll tweet it and Facebook it and
yes,
blog it.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you about where do you plan on going next? You do your photography, like you said, speaks to humanity. So that requires not always a great deal of traveling, because you can find humanity everywhere.
That's right.
But you travel so often. I mean, you have a series in Africa, and this is in India, and you've been so many places. Where are you going next to photograph?
Well, outside of my Michelle project, which I'm doing, Michelle's, all you great Michelles, anybody who knows any wonderful Michelles, which is actually how we found each other. I'm doing an incredible project here in the States called the Michelle Project. So men, women, all delineations of the name. It means resembling God, and it's a really phenomenal project. So I'm doing that. That's one of the things that I have to plug. There's so much going on in the world right now with Japan and Egypt. The tsunamis and the uprising and the new, people in power in Egypt, that it is those are two places that I would love the opportunity to get to, just so that I went to Egypt before and did some documentary work there, but my body of work is nothing. I would love to go back and rediscover that. And then I'm actually getting ready to head to Argentina at the end of the month, which is really exciting. And in June, I'm going to Mali, Africa. So I'm going to go build a school, and I'm going to document, bringing some education and some of that to the world. So I'm excited.
I thought you said Bali the other day
Oh,
when you
no.
told me that. I was like,
Mali,
India,
Africa.
Mali.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes. Buenos Aires. Oh, good. I'm so excited. Thank you. Well, I'll talk to you after.
I'm looking for a year.
Oh, good.
Someone just asked how long will the exhibit run at Papillion Institute of Art. It is up until April 7th, so please come down and make your way to see it.
Yes.
It's amazing in person.
And you guys have any
Yeah,
questions?
people just walked in. We've been talking to them.
The Dalai Lama said, it's a great quote I love, is that the biggest mistake you can make in this world is to think that you are separate from everyone else. Keeping in the mindset of introspection, that you find pieces of yourself within certain images that that you can specifically speak to.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you're always in a part of every image. I mean, you are reflections of what you see, right? So, you give what you mirror back, everything in life, and you always create your own reality. I mean, you can't capture it if you don't see it. And it does start with your view and your vision and your heart. So yes, I believe that.
It actually is very revealing, and it can almost make you feel vulnerable, I'm sure.
It is very revealing, and it's ironic because since I've been becoming, studying and practicing my work as a photographer, building up my eye, I've been really intimidated in front of the camera. Like, not acting. Acting I can do all day, and if you want to give me a chance, I could do that too. But no, I'm just joking. But no, it's still cameras freak me out now. Like it's very strange how that happens. I do not want to be in anyone's picture. Stills like candids when you're with your friends, hey, but not for a sitting. That is really hard for me.
Could you talk to us a little bit about your process and what camera you used and what's your favorite picture? Which is your favorite shot?
In this room?
Yeah, in this series.
Yes. And thank you, moms, for coming.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for coming, Mom.
Well, my process is different each time. But I will tell you that I'm a natural light photographer. I'm really good at flash and strobe. My technique is great, but what I love and what I'm drawn to is natural light. I see it really well, and it moves me. So that's something that is really part of my process. Equally, what I try to do is, there are moments that I find and see a shot and I just take it. But most of the time, I see the setting for a shot, which goes to speak to what she's saying about sometimes my work looks like cinematic moments. Because I'll see, oh my God, look at this light, look at that doorway, look at this moment. And then that's it, and I will frame it and wait for the moment to happen. So I'll just wait, which is hard because I have to pretty much travel by myself as a photographer because I will wait for an hour for that shot, 2 hours if I have to. Because I just have to get it. And it's funny because you can wait all that time and then you only get 6 frames and then, and hopefully you've gotten the shot after all of that time. The camera that I took with me to India for this series of work was the Canon 5D. I'm playing with the 5D Mark II right now, but I've also used the Nikon. In Africa, for my series in Africa, I just shot with Nikons. And there is a big difference between the two cameras. And so, I would kind of go between those two. I have a Leica, and I do have I have a lot of cameras.
What kind of lens did you use for this particular one?
Well, most of the time it's between a 50
Yeah.
which is my favorite lens
Yeah. Yeah.
because I like to get close. But then I also go and I use like the 70 and the 120. I mean, sometimes I use a fixed 85. I'm working on my bag back now because I carry my lenses with me. But, yeah.
And a favorite? You have a favorite?
Oh, my favorite. Well, that's really hard in this series because I wish you guys could come. Like, if you guys are in LA and you have a moment of time, it would be great if you guys can stop by, not only just to support me and to support this amazing gallery of space, but this work, it's like so personal. Like, it's my first prints from this trip, and it is really, I didn't always, sometimes you don't always get it, but this time there's some that I really got, and I'd love to share that with you. So if you have a moment, come down. I love the image of the flying cock. And that is the title. The flying cock. Thank you. Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
That picture is so. I'm gonna tell you why it's one of my favorites. Graphically, I just love it. I think the composition and the colors and the shadows and the detail is just something that I couldn't have painted that perfectly. But I never knew peacocks could fly. So I got a lesson that day from God. Sometimes they say find the miracle in life, find the wonderment. That's part of photography. I got to find the miracle right there in that moment. But in this particular picture, I was lost and I was panicking. And I was in this alleyway and the sun was setting and I just could not figure out my direction. So I was looking for the sun and I was like, it's gonna get dark and I'm gonna be mugged, and I was just thinking like an American. And all of a sudden I looked up and I saw this peacock sitting on the ledge and I said, oh, look how beautiful. So I grabbed my camera, and as soon as I grabbed my camera up, he took off. And he went to that other ledge right there, the next ledge, but I got that picture in 7 bursts. Boom, 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 boom. And I have him in every single, in his flight up, I have him. But I love this shot because it's mid-flight. And I feel like every time you're lost, look up. And so it's just kind of my, reminder of that. Thank you.
Well, you know what? We're going to have the images of the show online as well because people couldn't see what you were talking about.
Yeah.
But we have another question. Human prototype. Who might suspect is a photographer that I know? I'm not sure. What death, rebirth, and change have you experienced since being behind the camera versus being in front of it?
Wow, that's deep. I don't know if I got that deep yet. Let me see. What death, rebirth, and I'm sorry?
It says, what death, rebirth, and change have you experienced since being behind the camera?
Oh, wow. What death, rebirth, and change? Well, the dead, I've experienced the death, I've killed off, and what's dead inside of me is my, I have to, that's such I'm not going to answer it off the cuff, because as I was getting ready to say it, I was like, wait a minute, that would be an off the cuff answer. And that's a really deep question. So, what died in me was my fear. My fear. That died. That's done. I don't have no fear. What was reborn in me was my playfulness, like my childhood, my ability to play and to just discover. And what changed in me? Everything. I can see. I don't have any blinders on.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I'm just curious about this. How have people who have known you in your acting career responded to you as a photographer being like behind the camera?
I think at first, people were like, here she goes. Here she goes. It wasn't really a very positive send-off because I just think people were like, yeah, okay, Chenoa, whatever. But now, after all of these years, in my growth and my transition and my commitment, I think now they're like, this is where you were supposed to be. And now, even before my relationships, what I thought were great friendships or great, relationships are really better than before. They're very supportive. Yes?
Because I'm your friend, and I know you said...
Oh, are you my friend?
I want to speak to this because I know Chenoa is a long time. And Chenoa was acting. And when she did do this, we all knew that whatever Chenoa decided she wanted to do, she was going to do good. And it was, well, Chenoa's doing this, and she's doing this. Now she's doing photography. And this is going to be interesting. And the first time I saw Chenoa's pictures, when you took shots of Andre Royal in Prague, and they blew me away. And I was like, I said to Andre, Chenoa, she's actually a photographer. And she's not playing around. I said, this is really good. He's like, yo, so she knows what she's doing. And it just blossomed and off and in. Like, I am so glad that you found your eye. Your pictures are beautiful.
Thank you.
Really are.
Thank you.
Yeah, this might be where this is your launching pad for everything else. Now you can go back and if you want, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really, when you get to hear something like that from a friend who's watched you transition and has been part of your death, rebirth, and change, that means everything. Thank you.
Oh, Wyatt Gallery just tweeted.
Wyatt!
Wyatt, we love you.
We do.
Who is also another amazing photographer.
Yes, Wyatt Gallery is part of one of my inspirations. I look at his work and I know that, it's always good to see somebody who has a beautiful gift, and he has one of those gifts that make me go, yes, I'm going to keep moving every day. So thank you, Wyatt, for your inspiration.
And he just left the comment that, you're giving Chenoa is giving a great interview with answers from her heart, and I want to commend her on being so true and open through her words and photos.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Wyatt.
Moms had said something that I wanted to... First, I just want to paraphrase, because I don't know if people can hear him, because the camera's kind of like on you. But Craig Sir Mumzilla is here, who is this very amazing poet and actor, and has known Chenoa for such a long time. And the question that I asked, he was able to give reference to by saying that when she started doing photography, they were like, okay. But he said the thing that is in your video where it's like, he's like, whatever Chenoa does, she's going to be good at it. And on your website, you have a video, and you say, I'm Chenoa, I was born here, and my whole life, I was just always good at being good. I'm really good at being very good. And the first time we sat down and we started talking about your photography, and we were having this conversation, you said that your acting teachers were like, oh yeah, what do you think about Chenoa's performance? They're like, she's good, of course she's always good. And your photo instructor said that, and that's what I was trying to jab at about the India experience, is that he's like, okay, you take good photos. You take photos like everybody else takes, and they're just good.
Yes.
When did you start seeing the beauty in what you felt were your errors?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, it was in India when I was doing this workshop because I was allowed to. I think when you're No, this is a really interesting conversation. I don't want to get too deep into, but when you're a child, what informs you as a child? What you think you have to be? And I'm gonna since Wyatt said I'm speaking, candidly, I'm gonna continue to do that. When I was younger and I had a hard life, I wanted to do anything I could to get out of it. So I learned how to be great at staying out of the way, at speaking well, at crossing my fingers well, and dotting my T's and I's, and that was the way that I knew how to cope, okay? And that got me by. And then I've realized some point down the line that the world thought I was somewhat attractive, even though internally I was like, my life is shit and I don't see that girl. Excuse me, I'm cursing, right? Okay, so I started to conform in that way. Then I started to become an actor, and you get your feedback and they say, oh, you're great, but you need to be, can you get your hair a little longer, or can you lose 10 pounds, and you start to conform in that way. And so you have this buildup of ideas of who you have to be. And when I started to become a photographer, I would look in the magazines and I'd see all of the names of the people that are working and the people that you start to admire, because that's who they say you should admire. And you're not studying art history, or you're not going to the museums. I mean, I wasn't at that moment. And so you start to think you have to make work that looks like that. Never allowing yourself to ask yourself who you are or what you see. And in India, David Allen Harvey, who I will give him all the credit in the world, all the time, allowed me an opportunity for 7 days to find my voice, to ask me who I am and what do I see. And I would bring crappy pictures, what I thought were crappy, and he'd say, let's take a minute and look at some art history. Let's take a minute and really go through some of the mistakes in the world. And some of the mistakes in the world are some of the greatest photographs ever. Because they're truth. They're just nothing but truth. And you see it. And that's when I got it. And I'll never go back.
I just wanted to say that as a curator and an art historian, the thing that photography is known for in the scope of art history is that it was the start of, it revolutionized art, because prior to photography, artists were commissioned to paint things. So they were commissioned to paint families or portraits or people, or, they painted whatever people paid them to do. So it left very little time for them to explore worlds of abstract. Mm-hmm. And so photography came along, and then it was like, I don't have to paint a portrait of this family. We're going to take a photo of it. So then abstract art came on the scene after photography was introduced. Mm-hmm. And hearing what you just said about taking photos like everyone else, I'm like, that's like anti-photography. It's all about kind of like whatever your voice is specifically, people, it's the artist's perspective of just showing what their perspective is, like solely. Did you want to ask something? I saw you put your hand up.
I do. You seem to have, for those who can't see it, you have an affinity for almost getting in the personal space of some of your objects that you're taking the pictures of. How did you do that, and how did some of the people respond to that? It almost seems like your pictures come across so personal and in their personal space. How did you get away with that?
Yeah, a smile goes a long way. I mean, you use what you have, and just because I'm not a conformist, I'm still aware of my powers, and I have to use them. No, I mean, you give respect. And you give it, and you take, when someone is not interested in you shooting them, they let you know it. And either you disrespect them and go about it in a very disrespectful way, which is not cool, or you wait for the moment that they kind of give you a nod that they're going to allow you in their space. And that's kind of what I do. And I try to be friendly and warm and let them see what I'm working with and what I do, and that really always helps. You know, I think people are very curious in third world countries about cameras. I mean, as often as we take it for granted and as many visitors as they have, they don't always have a Canon 5D at their that they can touch and see and play with. So if you just extend yourself, they will extend themselves.
I agree. Somebody just asked, selecting a body of work for an exhibition can be stressful at times. How did you select the works for this exhibition? And this guy, it comes from
Nugent, who is an amazing curator and who has also showcased my work. Nugent, thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Shout out to Nugent.
Yes.
For me, in choosing to show Chenoa's work, when I went to her website, I saw a lot of photos that I thought were really good. But when I got to the ones on India, I was blown away. I wanted to know more. I wanted to see more. I just had this hunger for wanting to see everything she shot in India. And part of that is because the images from India, I had never seen pictures like that of the country, of the people, of the space. On Thursday night, I kept telling people, even if you've never been to India, everyone knows what India looks like through photographs. It's colorful, it's busy, it's, you know, Slumdog Millionaire. Those are the ideas that we have about India. And when I saw the series, there was a human side of it, there was a humanitarian side of it, and there was a side that, yes, it is a crowded place. There are people everywhere all the time in the cities, but you're not seeing just bodies, you're seeing a person. And in the photo, there's a story about the person. And that's why I was just so moved to want to show the work. And yes, it is stressful curating images, but I think the final product, I hope you're happy with.
Yes.
I absolutely love, and even, you know, one night before opening night at 1 a.m., we were still like, this one or that one, this one or that one. I mean,
Yes.
we spent a lot of time going through, because she has so many images, of just finding the ones that would best represent, you know, the body of work. And there are 26 photos.
Are there 26?
There are, I'm sorry, 22. There's 22 photos.
And a slideshow.
On display, yes, and a slideshow, which people absolutely love.
Yes.
That's on display right now. So
Yeah, I thought it was a very challenging, editing is always challenging for me. I don't know photographers who can edit, that's another separate special gift. So I was really thankful to have a curator come who's as talented as Michelle to help me navigate my eye. Because you really do want to have something that's a cohesive body of work, but that you want to showcase your best pieces, which don't always agree with some of your other pieces because they were just their own pieces. So it was a very challenging thing, but I am really happy with the outcome.
And I saw we just have a newcomer.
Yes.
I just want to open the floor up to, again, if anyone has questions.
I want to hear something from you because you came to my show.
I actually have a question. What location do you feel more enriched by after traveling to taking photographs?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Which location were you more enriched by, Africa or India?
A gentleman here just asked, what location was I most enriched by, Africa or India? And I'd have to say, ooh, I hate to say this on air, it's so bad, but I liked India. Not that I don't love Africa. I go to Africa all the time. I'm spending most of my work has been in Africa. Africa was the definitive moment that I decided I was going to be a photographer. Going to that country made me say, okay, this is what I'm committing to. Because their people told me that me, where I was going, my life as it is, we have it wrong. Their spirit was just intoxicating. And I will always go back to Africa. But India had something else for me. And there's something about it that's still stuck in me that I keep wanting to go back to. It has created a residue of this intoxic experience. Yeah. I have an image in the back called Fabric of Reality, and it's one of my favorite pieces as well, and that is kind of how I feel about it. Like, there are moments when I have these memories that are weaved into my fabric of reality from India that's still with me day to day. So.
I wanted to know, you mentioned like Egypt and Japan, and there's been a lot going on with both of those areas in the past few weeks, and even past day or two with Japan.
Yes. We should actually just take a pause and give that, just them some light right now, because, it has been a lot of devastation in both of those areas right now. And like a humanitarian, I really want to just take a moment to send them some love. So everybody tweeting and everybody watching, just take a moment inside your brain and send them some love, because that's what we have to do for each other.
Agreed. Someone just asked, which do you feel is most important in photography, the true beauty of a photo or a strong concept?
Now that's a really good question. The true beauty of a photo or a strong concept, they go hand in hand, right? I mean, God, it depends. I mean, it really depends on what you're shooting for, because if you're a magazine photographer and you are being hired to relay a concept or a feeling for a client, then a strong concept is where it's at, for sure. You need that picture to be technically proficient, and and you have to be really, really, the concept has to be spot on. But if you are somebody that is documenting life or doing reportage or fine art, then true beauty.
Oh, they're like tweeting me questions now. Okay, question for Chenoa. Do you plan to shoot at another location? If so, when?
Yes. I am going to shoot. We talked about it earlier, but I'm going to go to Mali, Africa in June, and I'm going to Argentina at the end of the month. And I am shooting my Michelle project all the time.
And I'll just answer. Someone asked me, as an entrepreneur, how are you able to make art a successful business? Actually, that could be for both of us.
That could be for everybody in this room.
Yes.
Everybody online, why don't you tweet me and tell me how you make it a successful business? I'm learning.
Yes, exactly.
I'm trying.
I think for me as an entrepreneur, how do I make art a successful business? I'm the wrong person to ask, because I don't think about money, and it's really not, I don't care about money, and I don't like publicly saying that, because people always give me flack about it, but honestly, I just love being creative, and I love art. I really, 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 really love art. So for me, because this gallery is still here another month, and it'll be here another month after that, that is the success. However, I understand that that's not successful for everyone else, because if you're not making bottom line dollar, then it means that you're not doing well. As a business, however, you have to get very creative in art in order to make money. And technology has been a huge resource in that, with this whole age of branding and marketing and having people. I feel like the more people know that you exist, the better chances you have of making money. And sometimes you take an L in art, and sometimes you come out amazingly on top. So.
And for me, I just dance at night. No, I'm joking. I just had to bring it up. Get those singles ready. No, I'm pure. That was a pure joke. But no, I don't know. I mean, success is success however you cut it. But I need money. I like money. I want money. And I like to make money, and it is a very challenging thing to do as an artist. I think if you were really going after your art purely, like generally speaking, my hair is not done, there's no makeup. I mean, you lose yourself. You don't even know what today is, what's going on. When you are really dropped into your zone, you care about nothing. The lights go off and you go, oh shoot, I need money because I have to pay the bills. So, it goes hand in hand, and I think I'm still struggling with that balance, as most artists are. So if you guys do have some ways that you can share, please, let's help each other, and because that is really what true art is about, and I'm learning, so share.
Can you expand upon that? Because it seems like you're much more emotionally moved by Africa and India, but you also have your first magazine cover was Shaquille O'Neal, and you have other celebrity portraits you've done as well. How do you sort of balance the two, your emotional ties for your picture that you may truly love versus
Commercial?
the more commercial stuff?
Yeah, I think as a photographer you have to do, you don't have to. I love my commercial work as well. My commercial work pays a lot of my bills, and I am been blessed that because I was an actor, my foot is in the door, so celebrities are easily accessible to me. They feel really comfortable with me. So shooting them is easy. Not necessarily easy because they're difficult. Meaning, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of things that you have to do to make sure that that person is protected, their brand is protected. So shooting them is kind of difficult, but at the same time, access to shooting them is easy for me, or easier for me than most. And I just keep them in categories. Commercial work is what I do, and it's conceptual and it's technical, and you have to really keep your skills sharp on that. But the reportage and the fine art work is what I do. It's what I have a passion for, and I just practice both of them all the time. And you have to as an artist, because one feeds the other. One allows you to really work and to work your relationships and to get your name out and your exposure out, and the other fine-tunes your craft. It's the same with acting or any other skill.
And we are going to be wrapping up soon. I just sent the tweet that said, send in your questions because we're wrapping up soon.
Well, I want to thank you guys. We might take one more question, but I really want to thank you for taking the time to be with me and share with me your questions and your thoughts. I hope that you will continue to support me. I really appreciate it, and I'm so thankful that I've been able to, meet Michelle and have my images, shown at this amazing space. So if you can, come and check it out.
And thank you for our live audience.
And thank you to my live audience who came out on a Saturday night in LA. This is called love.
Yes.
I love you guys. Thank you. And it's all males except for one female. So, hi. No. Okay.
And the last thing I just wanted to say was, I think I've said this a few times on Thursday night, because a lot of people were coming up to me and they were like, yeah, I didn't know she was a photographer, I didn't know she was a photographer, they just know you from acting. And I like to explain you in a way that's just very simple, and it's Chenoa is an artist, and acting is an extension of her art, photography is an extension of her art, filmmaking is an extension of her art. And if you know her, if you meet her one time, within the first 5 minutes, you understand that you have this unquenchable desire to express yourself at any cost, by any means. And I've never met a human that was like that before.
Really?
So in that respect, you are very, very special. So your entire life, and all of the arcs and peaks and lows and this life that you live, everything that you go through, you'll be an artist, The next thing that you do, whatever it is, I think people should not be like, oh, that's Chenoa. It's like, well, Chenoa is an artist, and she needs to express herself.
And that's going to be my next artist statement.
And that, I just wanted to say that because that's what I've been telling people about you. And it just puts things into perspective, because then they're like, oh, yes, she is an artist. And acting is an extension of her art. So that's sweet. Yeah, and the work is beautiful, and I'm just honored that I was able to show this series first because I love it.
Thank you. And there's a couple of pieces still available. My show almost sold out, but there's still some first editions left. And I hate to be so crass about it, but we talked about how art is commerce. So,
This is true.
if you're interested, please definitely call us. And we will be showing the images, and I will be dropping them on Facebook and on Twitter. Not quite yet, but about 7 days before the show is over, I'm going to reveal the images so that you can see them one by one.
And just to tag on to that, we accept credit cards, checks, money orders, pennies,
PayPal.
cash, PayPal,
TV rolls.
wired, gold jewelry. Just about anything. You can pay us in multiple ways. We'll take a car. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you
The
guys.
viewers just kept going
Yes.
up, and we are done. Thank you for watching Chenoa Maxwell's Artist Talk.